there, my dear little resin monkeys. Did you miss me? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I played a prank on all of you in my last video. It was all so that I can, let you guys know that I moved to a new little area, work area, as you can see. Do you like the new setup? I like it. I like the lights. I like it a lot. I've been busy with a lot of projects and it's taking time, unfortunately. And I thought, why don't I come in here and just me and the camera, just, do a little something a little different. So I thought, why don't I make a commentary / story time / opinion piece? I mean, do you really want to do that? Give your opinion on shit? But hey, that's what YouTube is for, to put out whatever it is that you want in your channel. Now, while this will be, a different video, it will still be on topic of resin figures. Now, all of you here come to my channel to watch me paint lovely resin figures. And that's pretty much it. That's all you know about figures. You just paint them. But did you know that there is a whole world that you guys do not know exists? A world that involves very talented people, lots of greed, and a lot of controversy. You're probably thinking to yourself, Leona, how can it be that, resin figures could be controversial? And all I have to say to that is, you don't know the half of it. And that's why I'm coming here today to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart that unfortunately, has a lot of issues. I've been meaning to make this video ever since I came back from Japan in February. But, procrastination is a thing and your girl is a procrastinator. I'm going to touch many subjects that will probably make a lot of people really uncomfortable and some very angry. It is the nature of this little subject. So this is just my reminder to please keep it civil in the comment section. It will be heavily moderated because, this is a very touchy subject for a lot of people, me included too. The GK world is riddled with controversy, and I want to talk about what happens with that controversy at all levels. Now, this video will probably be really long, so I have left timestamps so that you can skip, come back, rewatch sections of it so that you won't get, lost in the lingo that we're gonna go through later. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into the GK world, its origins, distribution, and all the controversy that comes with it. I already published a video about the story, the history of GKs, but it's a very, very old video. I'm pretty sure it's lost somewhere and nobody has really seen it. So I'm gonna just go over what I did in that video here. Now, GKs started in the late 80s, in Japan, at least for anime GKs. This has nothing to do with American or Western GK, so that's not the topic today. So if you're expecting something about that, it's not. It's only about Japan and anime kids, okay? That's it. GK figures had their beginnings in the late 80s when the big anime boom happened and, that bled into the 90s golden era of anime. These were fan-made figures made in people's garages, hence the name Garage Kid. They became so popular that the industry had to come in and regulate them because we know Japan has very strict copyright laws. So somebody had to come in and regulate the distribution of these fan-made figures. Regulations established that the distribution of these figures would be made legal only if the IP holder authorized it. This is where events like Wonderfest were born. Wonderfest was and is still held several times a year so that fan-made figures can be authorized by IP holders in order to be able to sell these kits and make them a licensed item. Wonderfest was and still is pretty much the main event in Japan where everybody that's anybody is going to that, event to buy and sell garage kits. If you have been in this hobby as long as I have, you know the gist. I don't need to tell you that Wonderfest is a place where you go and buy the kits directly from the artists themselves. But Wonderfest is actually a big rabbit hole that I honestly didn't know existed. I just saw the surface level, of that little burrow. I didn't realize it went really deep. I got curious after that and started to dig and go into this really big-ass rabbit hole, and oh boy, the things that I found. If you're in Japan and you make a figure of a copyrighted character, you need to apply for what's called the one-day license. This license is provided by the IP and copyright holder of said character in question. Once the license is authorized to the sculptor, they get notified and they are able to go specifically to this event on the day to sell those copies. Failure to do it, and when I mean failure to do it, I mean is that if they decide to sell, their kits off of that date and out of the venue, they're in big trouble, like really big trouble. We're talking fines and probable jail time. The license consists of acquiring a little sticker that they will place on each and every single copy that they will sell on that day. This is a tiny, tiny sticker, but you can really appreciate it here. This is a toy sticker, and this is a very, very old kit. But yeah, basically, you are given these stickers and to place them on each and every box so you can go and sell them at this event. Having this sticker makes it an official item, at least for that day. Simple, right? Of course not. The whole process of how sculptors get through the authorization process was very mystifying, at least for me. And after this Wonderfest, I got a little curious and decided to finally, get the mystery out of all this. And I started to dig a little and see what I find. And I'm going to share with you what happens in the process during, before you even apply to it, during, and, once it's at the exhibition venue, where you get to see it in person. Well, if you go to Japan, obviously. To begin the process, you, as a sculptor, need to fill an application directly through Wonderfest so that application basically goes to the IP holder for them to authorize you. How the process starts is that the sculptor needs to submit photos of their work, and they need to submit it through an application process. Now, this application is done directly through Wonderfest. Wonderfest works as the middleman between the sculptor and the IP holder. The sculptor and the IP holder never have direct contact. So this is what happens. The process starts with submitting pictures. They send it over and they have to pay a non-refundable fee. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a number for Japan Wonderfest, but I did find Bangkok's Wonderfest application where the fee is clearly marked as $30. By extrapolation, I can only imagine that the number for Japan Wonderfest would be somewhere between probably 4,000 and 5,000 yen. From there, the sculptor waits a period of time in order to hear back from the IP holder in case they are or not authorized to sell that kit. The process also applies if you make a figure of a copyrighted character, but you have no plans on selling it. You just want to go and exhibit it. It's just like, not for sale, but look at what I did. Yes, kids, if you want to show off your little figure, you need to be authorized to do it, at least at the event. If the sculptor is authorized to sell that kit, they will now have to pay another fee, which goes between 0 and 20% of the value that they plan to sell each and every kit times the amount of units they will take. Regardless if they sell out or not, that is something that they have to pay up front before the event even starts. And that fee goes directly to the IP holder, which could be constituted as a royalty. Before the big day comes, every sculptor is provided with a table. And this table has 2 seats, one for the vendor and one for a helper. And from this blog that I'm going to share later on in the video, the sculptor that is going to go to Wonderfest to sell their shit will need to pay the table at the venue. It's not for free. The price for the table at the venue is 27,500 yen. And this, like I said, includes 2 seats, the helper and the dealer. If they want an additional seat, I think they can have up to 4 or 5. I'm not really sure. Don't take my word for it. But every additional extra seat will cost them an extra 2,500 yen. This information is again from the blog that I found from 2021. The license approval is just for copyrighted characters. People that make original characters don't have to go through all this process. Anything that a sculptor did out of their own creation doesn't fit in the one-day license copyright thing. Now, there's the subject of limitability at these events. Many of the times we will see an artist take their kits and limit them to 20, 10, and sometimes going to the extreme and just offer 5 copies in total. Now you'd think to yourself, wow, what a bunch of greedy assholes, making it super, super limited for everybody and basically making it impossible for the people that wanted to buy it. But you're dead wrong, and this is the first rabbit hole that I found. Because that's the idea that I had, and many of us had in the hobby, like, oh, they must want to really profit off of this one particular figure, so they're going to sell it at an astronomical high price so that everybody can fight over it. But no. The person, and hear me out, the person that dictates how many copies a sculptor can sell at the event is not the sculptor. It's the damn IP holder. That's right, for years I've always thought that it was the sculptors, but no! It was the copyright holders of each and every one of these copyrighted characters. It was them all along. This really explains why you never see Garage Kids, a very popular series like Shonen series. Let's name Bleach, let's name Naruto, let's name all the big hitters right now or through time were all, property, or they were all shown. All because the copyright holder doesn't want to lose the exclusivity to their merch, not even for one day. Because they know that if an independent artist comes in with a fucking amazing figure, when we compare the mediocrity that Bandai or whatever other company brings out, it pales. Their products pale in comparison to a well-made Garage Kid figure by an independent artist. So they don't want that. They want to keep feeding you mediocrity because that's what sells. And, they don't want to lose that. Now, Sailor Moon is in a very particular place because we know Bandai and we know Toei Animations. These are the two heavy hitters that basically manage the copyright and distribution for Sailor Moon merch. So how is it that Sailor Moon has so many Garage Kids throughout the time? Well, my dear little resin monkeys, it's because Sailor Moon's IP holder, or in this case publisher, is Kodansha, the original manga publisher, for the series. So Kodansha is the one that provides said copyright, license for independent artists for Wonderfest. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other series in the same position, but I'm really not familiar with them, only with Sailor Moon, at least right now. Now, we've known for years that Japan loves to have an iron grip on any IP they hold. I mean, do I really need to remind you that, what Nintendo has done in recent years? No. We all know what Nintendo is, and we all know why Nintendo does. They have a very draconic way of thinking, and they don't want anybody to touch their shit. Like, this is my ball. You get nothing. This is my ball. I'm gonna take it. They must have control over everything they own, and they don't even want the fans to touch it. I didn't know any of this, and I found something extremely, extremely revealing, and that's something that we will jump into right now. At the event, there are 3 types of people. Obviously, the staff of the venue, the dealers, or in this case, the sculptors, and you, the attendee. Now, you as an attendee, all you need to do is take your little ticket, and when I say your ticket, it is literally a ticket. That's all of it, that's right there, the ticket, and I'm sorry if I, tape something in there, it has a name. I don't want, to show that name. But yeah, basically, this is all you need. You just show, I don't remember even I think I did. Yeah, they did remove the little stub here. You just show it to the staff at the entrance. They remove the little stub and you go in. You don't need to really show this again. Dealers, on the other hand, do have their badges and they have to put that badge on. They have to keep it on at all times during and before the event. Regular attendees are not like, attendees at a con over here, like let's say Anime Expo. Anime Expo gives you a badge that you have to have on you at all times. If not, you don't go into the venue. That doesn't happen in Japan, or at least in this event. Wonderfest has a lot of strict rules. And while I didn't know that there were certain rules for attendees, there are not that many. There are a lot of rules for dealers. And there's one particular rule that it's like the number one rule that nobody is allowed to break. Like if they catch you doing it, you will probably be fined. There will be penalties And at worst, you will get blacklisted from the event. You're never going to be allowed back in ever again. This number one rule is that you cannot leave your table for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the event opening. And that is 10 a.m. sharp. As soon as the doors open and the public comes in, you have to wait 10 to 15 minutes, I believe, in order to even consider leaving your table. If you do that, then you commit what's called a dealer dash. Now, just like you, I had a big question mark on my head. I was like, what the fuck is a dealer dash? Sounds like a funky song. I don't know. But then I came to find out that Wonderfest has some really serious problems. Now, if you want a kit from the event, your options are very limited. You either go to Japan, like I did, and go to the event personally, or you wait days after the event and check Yahoo Japan auctions to see if somebody there is selling the kit that you wanted. Those kits obviously were acquired by scalpers. Scalpers are people that go to these events exclusively to buy all of the kits that they have, probably on a list, to sell afterwards, after the events end, for a lot of money. We're talking 2, 3, 4, even 5 times more than the original price for a big ass profit. But a scalper is not just a scalper. You'd think that, but no. It's much more than just being a scalper. Scalpers are faceless assholes that take advantage of the GK industry by going around and buying everything out so that they can resell it later. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, how is it that all these scalpers get a hold of all these kits? Like, are they camping outside the venue, being first in line so that as soon as the doors open, they are literally at the front and are ready to run to the table and, buy the kits that they plan on buying so that they can later resell? Or maybe they're tackling everybody in sight, in order to get to their destined table or vendor. No. It's nothing like that. What if I told you there's a whole mafia behind the scalper industry? I'm going to call it an industry, the scalper industry. And there's a lot more than, they want to show for. And that mafia thing isn't what you think it is. This is the first rabbit hole that I found myself going into, and oh boy, did I find things. Let's remember the dealer approval process. When you are approved, you are, authorized a table, and this table has 2 seats. The fee for the table is 2,700, 500 yen. And if you want or require an additional seat, they charge you 2,500 yen for each seat. It turns out that there's such a thing as a dummy dealer. What the hell is a dummy dealer, Leona? First dashers and now dummies. What the hell are we talking about here? Well, my little resin monkeys, a dummy dealer is someone that applies to be authorized to have a table at the event without any intention of selling absolutely anything. And I mean nothing. Zero. They just want the table, an empty table. Now, obviously, if you have gone to Anime Expo and you've been in an artist alley or you're a dealer yourself, you have to go there early the day of the event to set up your table. Naturally. And that's what these dummy dealers do. They arrive early at the event, they are seated at their table, and they wait 10, 15 minutes before the doors open, and they dealer dash, as in they run to other tables to buy out as many kits as they can before the public comes in. This is the first rule that they're told to can't break at all. It's a fucking rule. It's a strict rule that merits getting banned from the event. Now, it's not only the dummy dealers, but it's also the actual sculptors or the other real, legit dealers that have their kits on sale. They're also at fault, for selling before the hour. They know they're doing it, but they still do it. Now, I don't know why they do it. They could be bamboozled by these dummy dealers being probably, something like, they approach their table and they finesse the sculptor and be like, oh, I really like your work. Can I buy one of your kits before you sell out? Oh, gosh darn you, I love it. And I probably, the other sculptor sees that they have like a dealer, a dealer pass. And they might think to themselves, oh, this might be another sculptor that likes my work and I don't know them. I'm going to be a nice person. I just want to, look good, to them, leave a good impression, and I'm just going to, sell this kit to them. Or they very much well know the person that is approaching the table and they sell the kit to them, breaking the rules. It could be one of two. Those are scenarios that I could, that I imagine myself. I'm not sure if that happens, but it's a possibility. Dummy dealers doing a dealer dash is one of the main problems and reasons for figures, for resin kits to be sold out before the doors open and before the public comes in. Not only that, sometimes it's not a dummy dealer. And even though they are reported by many Japanese sculptors on Twitter, the staff doesn't do anything, apparently, from what I've read. And they have a really big problem on their hands. And it's not only the people that apply, to be a dummy dealer, it's also people that acquire dealer passes through someone else, not to be at their table, at the table of the person that received the authorization to be there. But it's usually probably a friend that gets the dealer pass or somebody they know. They break all the rules. The golden rule is to not go and buy before the hour because of the copyright law system that they have. The regulations state that the damn kit can only be sold on that day, but very specific hours, a very specific schedule, not before and not after. Let's keep that in mind. Dealer dashers are not necessarily all dummy dealers, but all dummy dealers are dashers. Dealer dashing, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean that you're a dummy dealer, but nonetheless, you are breaking the rules the moment that you, as a dealer pass holder, go on about before the doors open and buying kits off of other tables. That it's the worst rule that you can break. A lot of sculptors know that, and a lot of them cover up for others. Dummy dealers work in groups, sometimes from what I read on that blog, sometimes up to 6 people together. They will get as many kits as they possibly can before the doors open, preferably before the public comes in. They are behind all, if not every single listing that you see on Yahoo Japan auctions. And speaking of Yahoo Japan auctions, did you know that if you don't want to go through the whole process of approval for Wonderfest, if you're a dummy dealer, you can just buy your pass from Yahoo Japan auctions? Yeah, you can do that, apparently. People that have that extra seat, that 200, 500, 2,500, 2,500, I'm sorry, I can't with English today, 2,500 yen seat. Yeah, those people that end up, requesting an extra seat for 2,500 yen, put that seat, that dealer pass, on Yahoo Japan auctions for sale for the total value of their table, plus the extra seat. So 30,000 yen. If you ask me, that's a very small investment for a very big profit. There are a lot of rules, but dealer dashing and dummy dealers are the number one problem at Wonderfest every single time. And no matter how many times they report them, nothing gets done. And I think these people know that, and that's why they keep doing it. The sculptors that see this happen and report them say that nothing gets done, and they not only denounce them for using Yahoo, but other websites as well, which I really don't know where else you might find except other than Mercari. But they're not happy at all. And I think I read somewhere a few days ago that there will be some sculptors that will boycott the event next year, which I find it really sad. But, it comes to this. It's come to this in an effort to regulate figures that are, of copyrighted characters. In order to keep the copyright holder or the IP holder happy, they have inadvertently turned garage kits into commodities because of how exclusive they have turned them and how limited they are. And these people, dealer dashers, and dealer dummies know that very well. And they have seen the opportunity and take it to profit off of it because they know, who's going to say anything? Nobody, because they keep on doing it. They are the reason all the kits get sold out before you even get to the table. I didn't know that at all. I was surprised. I was really, really surprised. And it made a lot of sense when I remember now something, and I even, had the chance to record it.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say something, Jim. You see right here, all these boxes? Well, the gentleman, you can't really see, but this is what we call a scalp. And your girl, Leona, is an artist. It's all. Now, I'm going to tell you what the scalpers, there's two things that are going to happen with all those kids. Two routes. One, he's going to sell them on a
Yahoo Japan
auction, Wakari,
for 4 times the amount of money.
Or say whether either it's like one of those American proxy sites like Zen Market that you guys probably use to buy a lot of stuff.
They don't work like that.
Or option 2 is all of those figurines you just saw, they're going to go to a Chinese recaster. Your girls here don't do that. So I'm going to tell you, Mr. Germany, I'm talking to you now.
Shut up. So don't just...
Well, I'm going to tell you all that as much as this event, everyone is here for good reasons. There are people that are here without the passion, the love, and dedication, and artistry for this particular copy. So
they ruin everything.
So support the artists, not the con artists.
Now you could ask yourself, can Japan do anything about scalping? And the short answer is yes and no. Yes, because they do have anti-scalping laws, but it's just like in the US. It kind of only applies the majority of times to concert tickets. And it doesn't always, cover tangible goods. There was a situation where the company Uniqlo did a collaboration with an artist, J something, plus J, I don't remember the real, Jill Sander. And the collaboration was so popular when it was announced that people saw the opportunity to go to the stores and buy out every single item for the collaboration and collection for the purposes of reselling it, exorbitant, highly exorbitant amount of money. And that was the first time that I believe there was a lawsuit, something happened there in Japan where they applied the anti-scalping law to tangible goods. And in this case, they put a lot of regulations to the people that went into the store and wanted to buy the items. They limited every item per person in an effort to reduce the scalping of that collaboration. And unfortunately, that anti-scalping law doesn't really apply to Wonderfest kits. Now, apart from Wonderfest and other, garage kit events in Japan, the other way to get them is through a relatively new site called Booth. However, the grand majority of the kits being sold at Booth are non-copyrighted characters, or in this case, original characters. Now, there are some publishers that are laxed in their licensing. I've seen some kits from Evangelion being sold on Booth out of events, so I'm guessing Gainax is like, yeah, sure, whatever, sell them. But other than that, you're very much limited to what you could get through Booth, because if you wanted a very much copyrighted character, you're out of luck, my dear friend. But hey, you're thinking to yourself, well, even if it's not, a copyrighted character, I still want to, buy this whatever kit that I found that I really liked and it's being sold on Booth. That's great. I won't have to go through scalpers, right? I'm just going to be able to buy online, right? Well, yes and no. And we'll get into that right now. Let me take a little detour and talk about Japan and their society and how it works. Now, I promise it does have to do with what we're talking. I just want to give you a little, vision, a little amplify this subject matter just a little bit more to understand what we're going to talk about right now. In Japan, cash is king. You would think that a country as technologically advanced as Japan would still cling to just using cash for payment over, debit or credit cards. And it's been like that, and I don't know if it's gonna ever change. It's not there yet. That's the reality of things. One of the reasons that I read, and seen in videos is that Japan or Japanese people don't trust the banks. So they prefer to have cash on hand. And also because apparently a lot of natural disasters, and they don't want to have to, depend on electronic payments. So they prefer cash. So it's a cultural thing, country thing, but it's not like the rest of the world. So that's one of the main reasons. Not only that, but if they attempt to go and open, or not open, but basically get we're not talking about credit cards, we're talking about debit cards. If they attempt to try and get a debit card, it's going to be harder than trying to update your license at the DMV in the US, that from what I've heard. It is filled with bureaucracy up the wazoo. Imagine the most bureaucratic process in your country and apply it to Japan, but it's 10 times worse. So how do people buy online without the need for cards? Well, my little resin monkeys, let me briefly explain to you. Now, Japan is a country of convenience. A little contradictory, but it is a country of convenience, and you don't need a credit card or a debit card to pay for things online. You can just simply go to the convenience store and pay for your purchase and then receive it at home. There is another option where you order something online, or in this case, let's say you get a kit on Yahoo Japan Auctions, and you don't have a card, you don't want to go to the convenience store. There's the option of COD, or cash on delivery. So if you're home, you're obviously going to receive your package, and the carrier will ask you for payment then. And that's pretty much it. Very, very easy, very convenient. But Japan has implemented, or is implementing, a new registry system for their citizens. And this registry system is mainly for social security and tax purposes. But, the government wants them to register. And this registration is called My Number. I know, very creative. And what this number is it's a 12-digit number that a citizen is provided. And with that number, you can open an account for PayPay. PayPay is like PayPal, but it's only for Japan. It's like an electronic wallet that you can add money to, or you can, connect your bank account to it and use it like a debit card. That's what I saw when I was there. When I stayed with my friend, she was paying with cards, and I'm like, how is it that you're paying with cards? And then she said, oh, it's just PayPay. Excuse me, what? So yes, PayPay. Now, unfortunately, if you're not living in Japan, forget about opening a PayPay account, because you need that My Number number. You need that registry, so forget about it. PayPay is now being used as I'm not going to say popular method of payment, but it's getting there, to pay for online orders. Easy. So you have convenience stores, you have cash on demand, or you have PayPay, and at the very bottom you have debit and credit if you manage to get one. It's great that Japan has all these wonderful ways and very convenient methods of payment for online purchases, but where does that leave us, people outside Japan? Royally fucked! That is where! If that kid happened to be on Booth, then you might have, more chances of acquiring it. But if not, Now, okay, let's talk about Booth for just a little bit. Booth, it's a good place to start if you want to get some original kits that are original characters, non-IP, non-copyrighted characters. Unfortunately, Booth doesn't sell outside Japan, because Japan is Japan, They make it so easy for them, but not for the people outside. Basically, you need a proxy service to buy off of Booth. And the only proxy service authorized, and you heard me, authorized to provide services for Booth is Bai, or in this case, Tenso, whatever you know it for. And if you don't want to use it, then go fuck yourself. Because, well, you can choose the cheapest option, from Bai when you buy something off of them. You can just, select the light service where they don't check your item when it arrives and they just ship it as is. So you save 300 yen there. But you still have to pay domestic shipping. And then you have to pay international shipping, which quickly adds up. I mean, it's not scalper high prices, but it's still up there. Someone that lives in Mexico, like myself, doesn't have the same financial solvency as someone from, Europe, maybe. Notice I didn't say the US because they're royally fucked themselves. That's just the thing. That's just, the reality of things. Again, most of this applies to non-copyrighted characters. If you wanted a copyrighted character, it's not going to be on Booth. I'm so sorry, you're fresh out of luck. Whenever you use a proxy, an online proxy service, you always run the risk of getting scammed. I've seen cases of people saying that they bought something off of whatever website and they used the proxy service and they didn't receive what they thought they ordered. The proxy service is not going to take responsibility for that. They tell you that you're taking all the risks because they're just going to buy whatever it is that you're buying. So if you want your money back or if you want a refund or if you want to return something, there is no such thing. There is no buyer protection, at least that I know, for something like that. When you have someone as a middleman between a seller and a buyer, a lot of things can go wrong. And you as a buyer end up paying for it, literally. Now, why won't artists sell directly to us? I mean, it's so easy to set up a blog. People can follow you there. And, you can just announce, hey, I'm going to be accepting orders soon. So, check in and we'll set you up. We'll put you on the list. The simple answer, I guess, is they don't want to. It's too inconvenient. Remember what I said about, banks making it impossible for you to have accounts or debit cards, at the very least. If they would start to sell directly to us outside Japan or overseas, God, I hate that word, overseas. If they want to sell to us overseas, then they would be required, or in this case, they would need to have something, a service, they can use like PayPal to accept international payments. They just don't want to. It's too inconvenient. They don't want to deal with any of that. Let the foreigners figure it out for themselves. It's too complicated for them. And another darker reason for this, of them not wanting to sell outside Japan, is xenophobia. Now, I hate to bring that word into the conversation, but unfortunately, it is the reality. Sometimes, not all, sometimes. It's no secret that Japan has some very, very anti-foreigner sentiments in their country, especially right now. There are so many accounts of people, making videos and telling everybody that they've been discriminated against in Japan because they're not Japanese. Basically, they're being told they are not wanted. And if they have such strong feelings, towards foreigners, wouldn't you think that would translate to online interactions as well? It does, whether they want to admit it or not. Expats and immigrants in Japan constantly say that they cannot make friends with the Japanese people because Japanese people don't see them as equals. They cannot relate to them. It's a cultural thing. And the cultural thing that divides us most is that they never tell you what they're really thinking. They never honne you, They never tell. They never express what they truly think and what they truly feel. Unlike us, we do that on a regular basis because we're the normal ones. They're the weird ones. Japanese people are also not confrontational. And when dealing with foreigners, confrontation happens because if something goes wrong, we're going to be like, hey, what happened here? And they just don't want to. They don't want to deal with us. However, give them an anonymous Twitter account and they will tell you everything, every single thing that they think about you. Japan lives in their little bubble. They don't care what happens outside of it. They never bother themselves to look outside that window and see what's going on. You see this world map? This is how you and me see it. This is how Japan see it. Now, I'm not saying all of the artists are like that. This is just a very small percentage, but it is, present in the GK scene, unfortunately. But I had many experiences in the past where I purchased directly from a sculptor. My money went directly from my bank account into theirs, no middleman in between. And it was a very pleasant experience. It was amazing. I didn't have absolutely any problem. We communicated via Google Translate. It was perfect. I didn't have to go through a proxy service. I didn't have to pay extra fees, nothing. I just received my kit. That was it, plain and simple. So I know there are artists out there that really do put effort into, making it easy for us outside to be able to acquire their kits. Problem is, not everybody thinks like them or feels like them. We also have to remember their copyright laws that prevent them from selling any kits outside of these events and these hours. Japanese society is very much a society that follows the law. At least that's what they want you to see on a surface view. Culturally, Japan is a country where people are very worried of what the other person might think of you, and that includes the international community. Did you guys see that Netflix series, The Days? When Shinzo Abe basically didn't tell the rest of us the earthquake happened and the meltdown in Fukushima happened because it would look bad on his, political career and his re-election. Yeah, definitely you should see that series. Really good. But basically, they're very worried about what other people think of them, us included. And they want to make sure that you know that they follow the law. And they don't want you to know or see when they don't. They always need to be seen in a good light, always saving face. And when they break the law or don't follow the rules, they hide it really, really well, to the point of covering one over the other. Because, appearances mean a lot and matter a ton in that society. This is why dummy dealers and dummy dashers exist. Rules are being broken left and right. Nobody's doing anything. At least they're not doing enough. They get away with it, and we have to pay for it. Literally. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Japan. I love their culture. I love their history. I love the anime scene. I love the food. It's amazing. I mean, I wouldn't, if I didn't like Japan, I wouldn't have ever planned on visiting and wouldn't plan on going back again. But I am, because I love, what Japan is as a whole, not because of the GK scene, but because of the whole. But these are subjects that are never thought about or are never discussed when we talk about when someone is trying to acquire a garage kit. What are the limitations? What does everything implicate when one is trying to buy them? Nobody really asks that. And it's not until we see this that we start to realize that there's a lot more than just, buying originals. Like any country, Japan has a shit ton of weaknesses, and those bleed into aspects of this hobby. And it's not until you visit in person that the veil comes off and you realize that they're a very flawed country, just like yours and mine. I just simply don't like this aspect of their society where they only see themselves. And I know Japan takes any type of criticism as an attack, and I know for a fact there will be a lot of people in the comment section going off, and don't worry, I gotcha. I gotcha. Just remember, any interaction with this video, even if you dislike it, is a good interaction because the algorithm pushes it. So thank you. And keep on disliking, keep on commenting, even if it's a hate comment, because YouTube is going to be like, oh, this video is getting attention. Let's put it up some more people. So yeah, that's going to be on you. Thank you, by the way. Now, I don't want you to take my word for it for all of what I just, shared. I've made a playlist, and it's down in the description box. And to help you get a little bit more cultured on Japanese society, these are the videos that I saw before going to Japan. And when I went to Japan, I pretty much saw it. That's something for later if you want to, and if you don't, that's fine. But basically, I'm just leaving my references if you want to take it that way. Okay, now, I don't want to derail the topic that much. Let's get back to, our original subject, which is, garage kits in general.
Come, children, come. Let me tell you the tale that will bring shivers down your spine. Yes, come, children. Come.
Trust me, I didn't want to bring this topic into the video. But hey, we need to talk about it, even if it makes a lot of people uncomfortable and even angry, which I understand, but it needs to be touched upon. So get your ice packs because there will be a lot of punches being thrown in this section. Yes, I am opening up that can of worms. The one thing that makes Japanese people go into a coma. We're going to talk about it. Recasts. how to start. Let's start by the definition of a recast. A recast is a copy of the original garage kit. It is reproduced in China without the authorization of the artist, and it is distributed as, as such, as a recast. Molds are made out of the parts of the kit, and they are reproduced and sold. Recasts are known to have poor quality, but a lot of people confuse the two types of recasts. There's a Chinese recast, and then there's a Thai recast. Thai recasts, recasts that come from Thailand, are infamous for being completely unworkable. They mix resin with talcum powder of some sort, making the resin extremely hard like a rock and brittle, and it is impossible to work with. On the other hand, Chinese copies or recasts are very high quality that rival those of the original garage kits because they are done in dedicated workshops with professional casters. Recasters back in the day used to sell all of their products on eBay. They still do, but not at the degree that it had maybe 10 years ago. If you found a kit on eBay, it was most likely listed in, from sellers in Bangkok or literally Thailand. And those are the ones other sellers, like Chinese sellers, are now taking to, let's just say, Temu's competitor to sell their products. I'm not gonna name the website. I'm sure you know what it is. I'm not gonna be here and be accused of telling people, oh, you're telling them where to go. No, I'm not telling anybody where to go. Okay, I'm just saying it's just called Temu's competitor, and they just make storefronts. They are just sellers that sell all of the reproduced kits at lower prices. These are usually very generic sellers. They don't have a website or a store, other than the storefront on that particular, e-commerce website. That's it. But there is one that has a website, a dedicated website. I am not going to name them, but they're very much known in the community, and I'm sure somebody will name drop them in the comments. I will not name them because I don't want people also saying, oh my God, you're promoting. I am not promoting anybody here. I am just stating the facts. I will from here on forth call them Voldemort for reference, but you can just check the comments. You'll probably see the name there. But Voldemort here has a website. It's a very, very well-known online website, at least in the West. Voldemort has been in operations for more than 20 years. It was a small, mostly unknown site back in the early 2000s. But people looking back then for a community to join the GK hobby would stumble upon a forum that they managed back then. It's closed now, and it has been closed for more than a decade. That forum became the largest international GK community on the internet. When I'm saying back then, I'm talking about the mid-2000s. It was like the Wild West of the internet. May I remind you that back then, we only had Kazaa and LimeWire to download our favorite, songs and movies, probably, in exchange for some gnarly viruses on our websites. There was no Google Translate, and PayPal was beginning to, become a little bit more popular. It was the Wild West of the internet. Those days, they will never come back. This was a very, very active community back in the day. We're talking about having at least 350 people at one time all logged in, checking out all the, forum posts. Now, I know 350 people online simultaneously doesn't sound like a big number today, for the Reddit maybe or other platforms that exist. But back in the day, that was a big number. Really, really big. It was a big community. And you could basically log in and refresh every hour, and a new topic would be open constantly. It was big. Everybody was really friendly with everybody else, and it was generally a really cool place to meet others that were just getting into the garage kit hobby. Now, the store staff would obviously manage this forum, and they would interact with us on a very personal level. Like, the store wasn't that known. It was just like the forum. But the forum was the main meeting point for people to not only talk to other garage kit enthusiasts, but also have a source or have someone they can contact to obtain these figures. These employees were very friendly. They interacted a lot with the community, and many of us were actually really friendly with them, except for the one guy. And I know if you were in those forums, I know you know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to mention it here. But you know, if you know who I'm talking about. But everybody was really friendly. There was like maybe 7 staff members, and out of those 7, maybe 5 were really friendly with everybody. And we had a good time in general, because not only did we talk about, the hobby, we also sometimes went off topic and they shared, personal stuff. It was a community. It wasn't a store per se. It wasn't just employee customer. It was more like, we just happen to, we have this forum and we happen to have this online store, but we started in this forum. For the GK community that was freshly out of their teens and coming into adulthood in the early 2000s, we very much still had the anime craze from the 90s. And as any anime fan out there, what do we want? We want merch, obviously. And there was a section of us that wanted figures that back then, let me tell you, they were not made as proliferately as they are today. Like today, we live in a figure wonderland. But 20 years ago, that was not the case. Very, very little figures were produced back then. And the ones that were done by garage kit artists, the sculptors, making independent and very, amateur figures of copyrighted characters that we loved, again, because we were coming out of the 90s craze of anime and we started to have money. Where did we go 20 years ago to look for anime figures or anime merch in general? eBay. In case you didn't know, let me tell you. Back then, there was no Ami, there was no Mandarake, there was just eBay, and that's all, honey. That's all. How did we survive back then? I swear to God. Unbeknownst to us, what we found were obviously the anime garage kits, but they were the Thai ones, the crappy ones. We didn't know that. We just saw these figures. We liked them. We didn't know they existed, and we just bought them. That was it. That was the extent of us finding garage kits in the wild. We never knew who made these figures. We just knew that we liked them a lot. I mean, what better way to bring the two things that someone might like, which would be being creative and anime figures. It was, the best of both worlds. I joined that forum back in 2006, and I was a regular forum goer for its entire existence, at least until it closed down. That community blew my mind. It was a huge rabbit hole to me back then that I went into, and I never came out of it. I'm still in it, sharing this with you. New generations that are coming in now don't really know the history and the story of the OG anime GK builders. They don't understand many things and why things happened. They just see what they have right now and what's available. And what is available is basically, coming into an era where acquiring a kit is a little bit easier than it was 17, 20 years ago. They don't have the full picture of what it took to be here today. No matter how much people want to deny it, the Western GK community came to existence because of that forum, even if it was run by a recaster. Let me once again shed light on what happened back then so that you can better understand the present. This is the story time part of the video. This is what I lived. This is what people in the OG GK generation lived through, okay? I'm not saying that it justifies the present, but I'm just saying that that's where we started and this is where we are. Just keep that in mind. It was impossible to obtain garage kits in the early to mid 2000s. Not possible at all, not in your wildest dreams. Unless you went to Japan, nobody was able to acquire original kits. Not even online stores, because unless you were rich or traveled a lot to Japan, getting an original kit was an impossible feat in itself. But where there's a will, there's always a way. In comes that forum. One of the main functions of that forum was obviously the community, interact with the community. But the other function was to have the same community share their very rare original kits. What do I mean share their kits? They would basically make polls on the forum and ask the people, hey, would you guys like a copy of my original figure? And people will vote on it. And if those votes received enough, upvotes, then the staff would come in from the store and be like, hey, we heard you. You would like to have this, casted. We're here to help. And that's what they did. They took in the original kit that was sent in by the owner. They obviously processed it and they reproduced it. And when they were done, they would send it back to the original owner. And from there, they started to distribute these kits, these copies, to everybody that wanted it. 90% of the old kits, the very vintage kits on that website were provided by the members of that forum. It was a group endeavor, and it was something that we were so passionate about. We're still very passionate about, and wanted to find a way to have access to these kits because there was no other way to get them. Like if you had an original kit, like you were God. Like, oh, you have an original kit. Oh my God, how'd you get that kit? How much did it cost? It's hard. It was. Just remembering it, man. You were God among us if you had an original kit. And when that kit got reproduced and it was listed on their website, the listing would say, thanks to blah, blah, blah member from the forum for sharing their kit. And obviously, this person, on top of getting their original copy back, they would also get, the copy of, their original and I believe credit for the store. That was 16 years ago. Things changed. I'm not saying that, it was all fine and dandy with this store. Things changed where they started to keep the originals and didn't tell the owners. And that's when everything went to the shitter. And nobody after that sent their kit in because of being afraid of being scammed out of their original. So that stopped entirely. But even if that stopped, it was now possible for them to have someone travel to Japan to the events personally to acquire the kits and take them back to China. They didn't need the forum anymore for that. We didn't know at the beginning who made the kits. It wasn't until probably the end of the 2000s that we started to really find and discover the artists behind the kits that we like so much. To us, they were mainly just faceless people that did, the figure, and that's it. We didn't know who their names. We didn't know how old they were, if they're a man or a woman. Nothing. We absolutely knew nothing of them. It wasn't until the internet started to evolve, and sites like Vlogger, WordPress, and all those started to come up. And even in Japan, I believe there were a lot of blogging websites, kind of like GeoCities, but, Japanese version, where these sculptors started to make their own little blogs and websites and started to upload their work. And that's when we started to find them. And we were like, oh, so this is the person that did all these kits that I bought that I really like. And we started to follow their works. We started to follow their websites, their blogs, wherever they posted, we were there looking at it. Like I said, we didn't have Google Translate, so we were basically deciphering from pictures what they were saying in those posts. We envied them so much. We envied, and we were jealous, mainly jealous and envy the materials that they use, the tools that were available to them, the paints, being able to just be in Japan and have all of that accessible. But to us, it was impossible because, again, nobody sold outside Japan. There were no proxy services back then. And the very little that were available were sketchy, and people were getting scammed left and right. It was a risk to try and see if you could get a hold of someone that could, attempt to buy something for you in Japan, even if it was online. And with that, we started to try and contact them. But we were met with a wall of silence. We were ghosted! Ghosted, I say. When they started to post about Wonderfest, that's when we realized, oh, these are the people that, they sell the figures, but apparently they only sell them at this place. And we just knew it was called Wonderfest. That's it. We didn't know much about it. Only it was an event like a comic or an anime convention, but just for figures. And that's how it was for many years. It wasn't until probably the beginnings of 2010s that we started to get more and more information, and we tried really hard to obtain original kits, but we couldn't. There wasn't any possibility of doing it. We didn't know about the one-day license. We didn't know about the limitations. We didn't know about their society, being, cash only. We didn't know anything. So when we tried to contact them and we were met with silence or indifference, it bummed everybody so much. We tried to support them. We tried to, tell them, hey, I'm your fan. But then when the same person ignores you, it's demoralizing. All because we were dirty foreigners. You need to understand that we were left with almost no choice. It was either get a recast or get nothing. Trying to get it from the source was impossible. Trying to buy them from Yahoo Japan auctions ended up with you in the hospital, after you sold that kidney to be able to pay the winning bid that day. Plus on top of all the proxy charges and fees that you might end up having to pay for back then, you had to have a lot of money to be able to do it. And it wasn't like somebody in our community was doing runs for Wonderfest so that they can get kits for all of us. Speaking of Wonderfest runs, there's a recent incident that happened in a community over on Discord regarding a person that offered himself as a personal proxy. These are people that offer to get you the kit, the original kit, directly at the event. Because, you're maybe a person that wants to do the right thing, and you end up hiring somebody, and you end up getting, more than you paid for when dealing with certain people. You never know who you're doing business with. Personal proxies are very risky to hire, because you never know who that person you're doing with business can be trusted or not. There are some individuals that have been doing this for some time in the community. I'm probably going to estimate 4, 5, maximum 5 years to now. And while I've never hired anybody myself, I know for a fact that there is a risk of getting scammed by these people. There was a shopper by the name of Spinomax that went on to offer their proxy services in several Discord servers, and I believe MFC as well. He offered himself to go and buy kits for people to go to this event in person. But the people that hired him received in return a lot of broken promises and fraudulent fees being charged. Now, you can pause to read it. It's really long, and I'm just going to put the screenshots right now. And like I said, you can pause it, read it. This is a statement from the proxy partner of this individual, and it's very lengthy. These were screenshots that were sent to me. I wasn't part of this Discord server, but it was, you hear things through the grapevine, and this is what I heard. The TLDR of all of this is that this person lied to his clients on stock status of kits that he supposedly was to buy for them, saying that they were sold out when they weren't, not wanting to buy kits they agreed prior to the size of the kit, and then come back and charge hundreds of euros extra, but told the client that he couldn't guarantee to obtain it. The other one was breaking his promises after charging extra fees for priority. 2 clients asked for the same kits. He ended up buying just one and wanted to pit them against each other in a bidding war instead of providing the copy to the original client that asked for it first. Demanding payments via friends and family only. Charging in euros instead of yen. And many other accusations regarding him being extremely unprofessional and rude. You can never be sure of who you're hiring because of situations like these. You're not there to see if the person is really doing what they said they were going to do. You end up paying for it. And all they have to say is, sorry, I couldn't get your kit. No refunds on the fee, Because I already walked myself through the venue and just couldn't find your kit. And, it's sold out. I'm sorry. It's so easy. Now, there's a lot more information on what happened with this person. But I had to make a second video because I didn't think making it part of this one would fit in here. So I made a second video. And the link to that video is in the description box. I believe people call that a drama video. And I've had the luck of crossing paths with this individual myself in the past. And he created a whole shit show that's been in the works for going on 5 years. And I want to separate that subject, subject from what I'm talking about right now. But if you want to know more, pause the video, or I'd suggest you finish this video first and then go to the other video so that you can understand a little bit more of the lingo. But, I know you want the tea. So pause here if you want, go over to the other one and then come back, or just, watch this one. And if you're not interested, that's why I separated, It's a drama video. You can, some people don't want to see drama. That's fine. I got you. We will continue the story here, but, link is in the description box below. We knew that getting copies of an original kit was not ideal. The artist doesn't get paid for it, obviously, but sometimes Japanese artists in particular need to realize that if it weren't for recasts, the Western GK community would have never grown the way it did. The hobby would have been confined to people living in Japan or people with the financial means to be able to travel and get everything they need there and then take it back home and really not tell anybody about it or not have a place to share it with. No matter how much we tried to support them, the doors were always closed on our faces. The community has grown since then, but it had its beginnings thanks to recasts. No matter how much people want to deny it, that forum was the catalyst and the pivot for this community existing today. Recasts are a very controversial topic in this community, and it divides it greatly. You have no idea how much division there is because of this. How much vitriol and hate because somebody doesn't have the money to do the right thing. A lot of people are against recasts, and the rest of us, we know better. We just agreed in silence that if you're against them, don't buy them. But also don't go attacking or harassing others for not thinking the same way as you. Because this topic is seen through many shades of gray in this community. Japanese artists don't see it that way. No, they see everything in black and white. No shades of gray in between. And I'll explain that a little later. Let's talk about this community, shall we? Oh yes, you thought I'd be here to defend them? You must be new here. Okay, this hobby is a very niche hobby. The community is a very small community, and it's spread out through many places on the internet. Because when Voldemort decided to close down their forum, basically forced us to go to their store and interact with it as if it were the forums, obviously we didn't like that. And we all decided to go our separate ways from being a big ball of, international coolness and camaraderie fractured. People made their own little forums independently. Myself, I went to Facebook because Facebook in 2009 was kind of like the thing. And it was around that time that the forum closed. I remember back then there were no groups, and we ended up finding ourselves we went from just knowing each other by our handles to literally finding ourselves on Facebook. And when we did, we tried to talk, but there wasn't a specific place, to talk about our weirdness together. And when Facebook introduced groups, I was like, you know what? I'll make one so that I can put all of my GK buddies in that so that, my friends and family won't see what the hell I'm doing with my life. And that's how I created the first Garage Kid group, because it was, just for my friends and me. But then people from the forum started, catching word through the grapevine. Hey, Leona made everybody's getting together on Facebook. And Leona has the group, and people started to come in and be like, hey, this is so-and-so from the forum. Can I come in? I was like, oh, sure, come in. So I opened my arms, I was like, hey, come in here. We got resin dust and cookies, come in. So we made our own little group, and the Europeans made theirs. And that's how, we ended up. The forum closed, but we still continued our little communities on our own terms. Unbeknownst to me, my little group would end up being the main group on Facebook for any and all anime garage kits. Back then, you have to understand that groups were not what they are today. Today, they are very big communities, and back then it was just a place so that you can put your contacts. in kind of like a WhatsApp group. Same shit, you know. If you use WhatsApp, you know that you could just put context in there, and everybody's like, it's a group chat. It was that. It wasn't what it is today. Then there was MFC, or My Figure Collection. My Figure Collection is just a website that has a huge database of basically any and all figures that come out of Japan. And that includes garage kits. So there was somebody that made they're not groups there, they're called clubs. So somebody made a club so that people that like garage kits can go in and talk about garage kits. Nobody really likes, the clubs or the forum formats over on MFC. So they end up going and making articles on the main site. And that's how, these topics end up being read by everybody because they don't put them where they're supposed to, but, it gets eyes on it. For the most part, I kept to just, being active, obviously, in my own group. And I also joined Reddit when the subreddit Resin Kits was made by a dear friend of mine. And when I joined, she asked me as a personal favor if I would help her mod it. And I was like, sure. I only had my group, and now that I wasn't on Reddit that much. I was just getting into Reddit, so I didn't know how to move on it. But I was like, sure, I'll help you. It's still a very small subreddit. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Little after that, Voldemort realized that closing down their forums was not the greatest move, and saw that we all went to Facebook. So they opened a Facebook group there. From the forum days, if you recall, I mentioned that, the staff would interact with us. So I was actually friendly with one of the people that were staff from the old forums. And they approached me on Facebook because we still maintain contact after the forum closed down. We were all bummed out. And before the forum closed, we messaged in private, hey, would you still like to be, friendly? Outside of this forum, and we started making contacts. So one of them added me on Facebook, and we've been friendly since then. When they joined Facebook as a group, they messaged me like, hey, we have a group, would you like to volunteer being a mod? I was like, sure, why not? So I didn't really think much of it. They weren't using the group as they were using the forums back in the day. So it was just like, sure. I wasn't going to be the only mod there, obviously. There were 10 other people aside from me. So I was like, oh, okay, so I'll just help, once in a while, see what people are posting and sharing. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much my whole involvement in this community. I obviously, check up on my group, check up on Reddit, make sure that, it's being modded because my friend lives in a politically in a country where there's a lot of political unrest. She doesn't always have access to the internet, and somebody needs to mod that subreddit in order for Reddit to not ban it, because if it goes on unmoderated, Reddit closes it down. And I'm basically there to help keep the lights on. That's it. And sometimes I just still go into the group, the Voldemort's group, but I just, clean up the spam bots, and that's it. I don't really interact with anybody. I basically keep to myself and have become a lurker because I no longer have my close friends in those communities. The friends that I met through the forums, well, they have their lives. They have kids, work, they have things to take care of. They are no longer available that much to interact with the community as they used to before. So even though we have constant contact between me and my GK buddies, most of them are not doing GKs anymore. And if they are, it's very sporadic here and there. So it's not as fun to interact with the community as it was for me. But I still want to be there, I don't know, maybe it's me clinging on to nostalgia or the past, or just seeing new generations come in and discover it. I don't know what it is. I'm not terminally online, even if maybe some people have that impression. I live in my own world. This is my world, This is my world. My channel is my world. My community through YouTube is my world. I'm not in the GK community at this point that much. I like to make tutorials, because I still like to share the knowledge that I have for anybody that wants it. And that's pretty much it. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't interact with it much that I notice things when I go in there. And I think it's no secret that the anime community in general has a lot of toxic people in it. I'm talking about any aspect of the anime culture. And obviously, some of those toxic people will find themselves, finding their way into our little communities. And this community has had its fair share of drama. Drama you wouldn't believe it, why it became drama. But I find myself mentioned a lot in these little fractured communities, but not for the things that you might think. Now, when years went by, new people started to come in. New faces started showing up in our, communities all over. The newbies got confronted or basically, saw the whole controversial, the whole divisive topic of the recasts. And because, they don't know their history, they're ignorant to it. And when I mean history, the history of this community outside, international GK community, the divisions were even more pronounced. Like if it was kind of divided before, the new faces came in, saw everything. They started to devise things even more by getting on their high horse and attacking those that even mentioned the word recasts, to the point of really bad harassment on their part. Those of us that knew better and were here longer than they've probably been alive, knew better. We let them be. We just applied our silent agreement, and that's it. But ever since then, we're talking about maybe 6 to 7 years ago. Things in the community aren't as, peaches and creams, as some would say. And we have a lot of problems. A lot. I, in particular, was on the receiving end of most of these hate comments and harassment through MFC years ago. There were 3 people in particular, which I'm pretty sure they're watching right now. Hi. That took it upon themselves and into their hands to constantly, have really, really strong and really, really bad harassment campaigns against me. They would be relentless to the point where they would harass the shit out of me. And it left me with a very, very sour taste in my mouth to the point where I stopped participating on MFC and altogether. The really toxic ones are the ones that poison the well for everybody else, in my opinion. They're very small groups of people, but they're usually the loudest. And as someone who's been on the internet longer than these people have been alive, probably, I was too old for that shit. I was like, you know what? I had my fair share of drama online, when I was young. Not anymore. So I basically moved to the sidelines. The funny thing about MFC is that they condemn recasts. But in the same breath, say it's okay to buy recasts if it's just to practice. The mental gymnastics that these people have to go through to justify buying a recast when they constantly tell you that you're not supposed to do it. It's a sight to see. A recast is a recast. If you are against them, then absolutely don't say it's okay to buy them just for practice. You need to be consistent here. You can't have your cake and eat it too. That also goes for the people that shit talk me. Oh, yes. Don't you think I don't notice whenever somebody leaves a comment, and says some shit? Remember that I told you that I read everything? You think I was joking? No, honey. Now, in between all of MFC's little quirks, their favorite one for some, I'm saying for everybody, for some is to basically shit talk, every single possible time they have the opportunity to do against me. When I said that I read everything, GKs are a very, very small niche and a very small community, so there are not a lot of places where people talk about GKs, and wherever they are talking about them, you can bet your ass I will be there. Lurking here and there, just, watching from the sidelines. And every single time someone says something colorful about me, I'm reading it. It's about the same thing that happens when the topic of recasts, comes up. We hate Leona! Hey, do you know somewhere that I could look for a tutorial? Because I really don't know how to do this. I've been looking everywhere, but I can't find any helpful tutorials. Oh, you should definitely check out Leona's workshop. She has a lot of tutorials, but we hate her. Just letting you know, we hate her, but she has a lot of good tutorials. Make up your mind. I have very strong feelings about my figure collection, where I am equally hated and liked. And yikes. That's all I have to say. Yikes. It's always self-interest. They hate my guts, but at the same time, if they need a tutorial on how to do something and I already published it sometime in the past, it's always self-interest. They will take the free knowledge that I give out, but they still hate my guts. I opened this channel 12 years ago because I wanted to help people the way that I would have wanted to find the information and to find the guides and tutorials when I started, when it was so hard to find information on how to do things. I was really frustrated in the beginning. I didn't know how to do many things. I would scour the internet, for any bit of grain of knowledge that I could find. And I always thought if I could give something back, it would be that knowledge that it took me so much to try and obtain. I just package it in a neat little, box with a little bow, and people can view it for free. I never charged for my tutorials. Unlike, magazines and other publications were like, hey, we have this tutorial on how to do this. Oh, but it's like $20, for the subscription. Like, what? No. I never wanted to do that. It wasn't my interest. I've always wanted to help outside of YouTube, not just through my channel, but outside. If I were somewhere and somebody asked for help, I would very much, be the first one to reply and very happily do it too. But then the division started, and when I saw all the shit being thrown at me, I was like, oh, you need help? You're on your own, bitch. There's so much somebody, that knows more than you can take before they just don't want to deal with you anymore. That's why I keep everything here on YouTube, because if you want it, you will come for it. I'm not going out anymore, going out there trying to help people. If they want my help, they come to me, even if they hate my guts. The hypocrisy in this community is so big. They will scream to the heavens.
You're ruining the industry. You're buying recasts. Ah!
But then at the same time, run and buy an unofficial and unlicensed third-party resin figure. You know the ones I'm talking about, the big-ass ones that, studios conveniently call them garage kits, even though they're fully painted and assembled. Buying recasts? No, don't do that. Oh, but, I'm just buying them because, I just want to practice, so I'm not doing any harm. Making 3D models and selling the STLs for you to print. Those are all breaking copyright laws. I don't care if you say it's just fan art. A 3D modeler making an unlicensed and unofficial model of a copyrighted character is the same thing. They're not paying royalties to the copyright holder, and you are supporting them breaking the law. And you end up buying a bootleg, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. If people are really dead set on staying only official, then don't buy recasts, don't buy third-party resin figures, don't think of buying that 3D STL file for you to print out and paint at home. It's all in the same boat. You're stealing from the IP holder by buying unofficial and unlicensed. Let's call a horse a horse. I'm not a hypocrite. At least I try not to be, because I'm human after all. But I know what all of those are and what all of those implicate. Anything that isn't licensed is a bootleg, no matter what it is. There's no moral high horse when you can sit and pick and choose what you condemn and what you think is okay because, it's not doing any harm to anybody. You can't. You're supporting 3D artists because you just had to buy that Gojo figure that nobody else did and that it was really good and nobody was doing it. So I wanted it. I wanted to paint it. It's the same thing, honey. I also don't just sit idly by and let people punch down on me without fighting back. But when I do, then I'm being called dramatic. These people think that I should just take it. They don't like it when I turn the mirror on them to show how toxic they are. Then there's Discord. Out of all the places that one would have thought a GK community would exist in, I would have never imagined having one on Discord. Maybe it's the millennial in me that this application or this app or platform, whatever we're going to call it, it doesn't appeal to me. Maybe, maybe I'm old. Maybe my age is showing now. Don't get me wrong. I do have my own Patreon server, but it's only so that I can interact with the people that support me directly. I enjoy it. I love having my monthly chats with, the people that join in. It's fun. But I don't go out of my way to look for servers so that I can interact or, be part of the community. I'm not like that. I barely open it, but just for my Patreons. So color me surprised when, I decided to pop into one of these servers and the first thing I see is people shitting on me and making things up about me. Like, me doxing people or using slurs, And the thing is, I confront people about it. I'm sorry, Susie, but why is it that you're telling people here that I'm using slurs? Excuse me? When did that happen? Oh, why are you not talking, huh? Why are you silent? You still there, Susie? It's as if these people don't expect me to directly confront them, and they think that they can just say, whatever, and think that I'm not going to read it or that I'm not going to say anything. I do. If I see it, obviously. I'm not in all of the servers, so I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, and these people still talking shit about me, but at least at the moment, I guess these are the people that say, oh, I don't like confrontation. But, they bask in saying shit. That's how it is. And unfortunately, I don't have a very good view on Discord right now because of that. Because all I see is a community divided by those who just buy official and just buy legit, and those that don't have the means or just can't, and there's nothing else for them to do but to buy the unofficial stuff, the recasts. That and apparently me, because apparently, the same thing that happened on MFC is happening now on Discord. Jesus Christ. I never thought my name would end up in so many places for so much shit. I'm over here minding my own business. I rarely interact with people. But don't get me wrong. The community is very salvageable. There are a lot of good people in the communities, wherever they might be fractured, be it Discord, MFC, Facebook, you name it. The place where people congregate, there will always be toxic people in them, but there will also be a lot of good people, a lot of people that cheer on you, that like your work, that tell you, yes, you did it, maybe next time, you can fix this, do that. And, constructive criticism is given where it's appreciated and where it's requested. I think people can make friendships in these communities as long as they know which community to join. I've made friends and have maintained them for more than 15 years because I found them in this community. It is a good place to start. It's a good place to find people that like the same things you do. There's, like everything in life. That is what our community looks like, but what do the Japanese think? They hate yours and mine's guts with a burning passion if you've ever bought a recast. There's no ifs, buts, or coconuts. If they could spit on you in person, they would. Japanese artists have been oblivious to the existence of an international GK community existing. The thought of us never crossed their minds because, again, Japan only thinks about Japan, no matter how much they deny it, unlike us that were interested in things and people outside our own circles and bubbles. That didn't happen until something major went down. Something where they finally decided to take a peek out their window. Remember Voldemort? You do. We've been talking about it all this, half of the video now. Well, apparently Voldemort's sales aren't doing that well. Well, that's what it seems to me, because their advertisements on the social media platforms that they're on were ramped tenfold on everything. If somebody is madly promoting themselves, is because business is not going that well. They somehow want to recuperate something of it. There was just one platform where they hadn't opened an account yet at that time. I'm talking about 3 years ago. And that was Twitter. Now, let me tell you something here. Twitter, while being the cesspool that it is actually Japanese Sculptor HQ. That is their platform of preference when it comes to networking and connecting with other sculptors. You had to witness how my jaw dropped to the floor the moment I saw Voldemort open an account and start immediately promoting their products. I couldn't believe the big ass cojones bigger than my hands, to open an account on Japanese HQ. I could not believe it. I was dumbfounded entirely. The one place I thought they never stepped foot in. And why would they? I mean, it's obvious that what they do is not, it's legally questionable. Why would you do that? Do you have a death wish? All hell broke loose. It was Pearl Harbor all over again. Japanese artists saw their advertisement and immediately went on an attack and report rampage, but unfortunately it didn't lead to anything. Nothing came out of it. To say they were angry is the understatement of the century. For years, Japanese artists have told you, don't buy Pirate Garage Kid! They repeat the same thing now. They include Booth into their little, chant, which, great, beautiful, excellent, take my money. But what about the rest of the kids? What about the other ones that are, copyrighted? And when we ask that, they will repeat themselves like a broken record. Don't buy Pirate Garage Kid! They just say, figure it out. Just don't buy recasts. I mean, that's not very helpful if you know what I mean. Their vision of the world is so limited that they don't have the slightest idea of what one outside of Japan has to go through to try and even attempt to support them. The way I saw this meltdown was really interesting. I mean, it's not like Voldemort's store wasn't, searchable or Googleable since 2012, 2015. They've been open since 2002. It's not like it was unknown. But here were all the Japanese sculptors with the biggest surprise Pikachu face I've ever seen in my life. For them to see the enemy appear on their turf was enough for them to make them look up and finally see outside the window. And what they saw was a whole ass community of international model painters and builders that were thriving because of recasts, because of the mere existence of recasts. And all because Japanese law limited accessibility to anybody that wanted to purchase these kits. In Japan, not only that, but for those of us outside Japan, it became impossible. Someone else saw that opportunity and took it because there was a demand. And they came in to supply because Japan couldn't be bothered. This showed me that Japanese sculptors never bothered to look into who were the people recasting their works or where they were selling it or to whom. They knew they existed, but they just never did anything other than say, don't buy Pirate Garage Kid! And that was it. Kind of like your thoughts and prayers in the United States. Yeah, I know it's a low blow. I'm sorry. But, it's kind of like them saying, shogunai desho. It can't be helped. It's outside Japan. It can't be helped. Really don't know what they expected people to do. Instead of saying, don't buy Pirate Garage Kid! And actually give good solutions, they basically shot themselves in the foot. Many artists realized that and tweeted that, had they known it would have come to this, they would have personally started selling to overseas people. But they missed their chance. And obviously, everybody else that didn't think like that immediately went and attacked us, blamed us, for recasts existing. They declared war on us. And not only us, but me in particular. And you know what happened the last time that Japan declared war on someone. I'm just saying that it didn't end well. Obviously, they were screaming left and right. It became a full-fledged Twitter storm. Everybody telling everybody, don't buy Pirate Garage Kid! But doing it in Japanese for some reason.
即版ガレージキットを買わないでください.
And not in English. I mean, if you wanted to reach the right people, wouldn't you want to do it in a language where 3/4 of the whole world understands and search for things? Yeah. When this happened, the White Knights came out to shine. Now, who are these White Knights? Well, These are the same people from the same community, our community, that came out and said, yeah, don't buy recasts, they're evil, while at the same time still buying recasts themselves and being part of the community and, you know what I'm going at. Basically disowning the very same community that saw them grow and helped them grow as artists. Now they were saying, yeah, no. We're not like the dirty foreigners that buy recasts. No, we know better. It was like the pick-me girl in the GK world. I found it incredibly distasteful because 90% of the people saying all this on Twitter and pandering to these artists that were, crying about it, were people still very much active in our community, where the majority of people, if it's not 80% of people, could only work with recasts. And they started like that too, believe it or not. I know who they are. And I still have just a little bit of respect for them, even though I lost most of it when I saw them doing it. There's only a very small percentage of people that actually probably never purchased a recast. And that's most likely the people that are coming into this hobby fresh when it's relatively easy to acquire an original kit if it's not a copyrighted character. Those are the people that don't know the history of this community and don't know what it took to get here. I understand why these white knights wanted to separate themselves from us. They want to have the approval of the Japanese artists because they admire them, they're their fans, just like I was and just like many were many years ago when we discovered them through the internet. They want their approval and they want to be seen as equals, but no matter how much they try, they will never be accepted. They will not be seen as equals. And you know why? Because we're not Japanese. For that simple reason, we are not Japanese. Remember what I said about Japanese society. You will never be one of them. And I realized that years ago. And it's the reason why I stopped attempting, because I know it will take me nowhere. When I saw who these people were, I was very disappointed because a few of them I considered friends of mine. I respected them as fellow GK builders and artists. But seeing them make themselves look like they were always on the side of righteousness made me do a double take. Listen, I basically lost most of my respect for them. Judas Iscariote! Here they were, part of the community that saw them grow, and they were spitting on us because we were being blamed for the very existence of recasts. As if they didn't contribute to the problem. But shh, Japanese others don't know that, so it's okay. Shh. They did like any evangelical Christian does and say, I've learned from my ways. I have been forgiven. The way the sculptors reacting to seeing us outside, the international community, being really large and basically surviving off of recasts and immediately attacking us was not the right way to react. You discover that there is a problem, you don't immediately go to the offensive. You look for, obviously, the root cause of the problem. They knew it, in part, it was because of the limitability and the exclusivity of, being copyrighted works and the one-day license and all that, and yada, yada, yada. But instead of attacking us, and instead of saying, oh, it's all the recaster's fault, they really don't want to look inwards and look at the real problem here. The real problem goes much deeper than the recasting industry. And it's something they're not prepared right now to admit, to see, and to process. When they see the root cause of the issue, that's when they need to start working with us together in combination to bring out a better solution to the situation instead of just saying, don't buy Pirate Garage Kit! They offer no solutions other than tell you, come to Japan and buy them here, or buy from Booth, even though the very thing you are looking for might not be there. Both of these are pretty much tone-deaf responses. No amount of explanations will justify to them us buying a recast, because to them, we're the problem. Piracy has always existed since the dawn of time, and more so now in the modern age. I don't need to remind you that Crunchyroll started as a fan streaming site before it went legit. Or let's even recall going further back. Remember the 80s VHS copies where people would send in blank VHS tapes to Japan so that they can record the shows and then ship them back to wherever? It's always been a problem because of accessibility. Everything that Japan has ever done has been pirated. Call it anime, call it manga, video games. The same song is being sung again, and this time it's with recasts. All because they don't want to expand to audiences outside Japan because the law. Recasting exists because Japan does not make it easy for us to acquire them through legitimate ways because of their draconian laws and because of the regulations that the IP holder have control over. If we try to do what they ask of only buying legit, the entry barrier to this hobby would not be sky high. You would very much reach the moon and you would still not be able to get into it unless you have a very high economical status or position. We walk into gatekeeping territory where only those with big wallets get to have fun in it. Japanese artists tell you to support them by buying originals. Okay, then make it easy for us outside Japan to easily buy directly from the artist and not make us rely on scalpers or resellers or trying our luck to see if we find that kit secondhand down the road, like in stores like Mandarake or Rakuten or Surugaya. Make it so we give our money directly to them without a middleman, without having to pay so many fees on top of so many shipping because it adds up. They have absolutely no clue the amount of hoops that we have to jump in order to try and do the right thing. Listen, the world is falling apart for a good decade now. If someone that wants to join the hobby sees the only garage kits go for $300 or $400 and they see a recast for $60, what do you think is more enticing to them to buy at the end of the day? This is a hobby. Hobbies are used for people to escape their reality, to forget about the world. When someone buys a recast, they have absolutely no idea what's going on with all this copyright shit. They don't even know that they're being demonized by Japanese artists. You can try and look for kits at anime conventions, but then you're slapped with con prices. I saw Eldora Model taking a garage kit for sale, and when I approached their table, I almost threw up when I saw the price. They had a model on their booth website marked for 25,000 yen. On sale at Anime Expo for $250. Explain to me how the fuck do you justify such a price difference? Why should I pay extra for you to be at AX so you can sell that to me when I could just go to booth through Baiyi, spend maybe 300 yen for their fee, and maybe $20 if I go the cheapest route for shipping on everything? It's still less than $250. How do you justify that? I also went to Volks's booth, where I checked out all their garage kits that I was really, really planning on buying at least one. When I got there, they showed me the ones that they had. I was interested in one in particular, which is Lime from, Saber Mighty Nia J. Woo, we're talking about way back. The price difference was ridiculous. It was between $50 and $70 a difference between what they had there at the con versus what I could have bought directly from the Volks USA website. Like, make it make sense. Honestly, make it make sense. It's as if they could increase the value because we're stupid, and people go to cons and spend all this money. So why not spend an extra $50, $70 for something that would take them 2 weeks to get if they order from Japan? But it would be obviously $50 cheaper. But in all this, I think recasts, in my opinion, are losing their appeal. Not because sculptors are making it easier in some ways to acquire their kits through legitimate ways, but because of 3D printing. 3D printing is becoming more and more popular. And why would I want a kit that I kind of like, but doesn't really hit all the spots that I really wanted on a figure when I can contact an independent 3D artist and have them do my figure of the character that I love the way I want it and print it at home? Way easier. While I personally have a love-hate relationship with 3D printing, I see it that it's going to be a very important part of the modeling and painting scene in general within the next 5 years. Probably half of all the models painted will be 3D printed. And that's why I think recasts will lose their appeal more and more as time goes by, because technology is advancing faster, where it's easier for us, if we want something, we can just ask someone to make it for us and print it at home. Easy peasy. And it's almost it's almost a one-of-a-kind thing. Okay, so we've established that in order to get kits the legitimate way, you either go to Japan or you buy them online through Booth, or you throw yourself at the mercy of scalpers and resellers. What about, the other people that take advantage of the situation, which are these proxy shoppers? You remember, the personal proxies that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. When I went to Wonderfest in 2015, I went with a mission to try and help as many people as I could to obtain a legitimate garage kit, because not everybody goes to Japan every day. And when I said, hey, I'm going to go to Wonderfest, does anybody want me to get a kit for them? There were a lot of people that were very much interested. And I was like, hey, you know what? If I secure your kit, I'll charge you $25. And if I don't, just $5, for my trouble, for just walking. I was able to get most of the kits for everyone, except for maybe 2 people. But I was very happy to help everyone that I could. And while I got almost everyone what they wanted, I ended up getting myself basically nothing except one single kit because I was so focused on getting the things for everybody else, something that I regret to this day. That's why I didn't offer to buy anybody anything at Wonderfest this year, because I wanted to enjoy every minute of it while I was there without thinking of someone else. I thought that charging $25 was fair, but it turns out that I was extremely undercharging, because apparently the people that do these personal proxies charge you hundreds of dollars for just trying to acquire one kit. I can't fucking imagine paying that much amount of money to go just walk through the venue to see if they can grab something for you. I get it. People need to hustle, but it's one thing to hustle, and there's another to take advantage and to abuse the situation. You're basically paying the same thing, for a kit to someone that's going to purchase for you instead of buying it from a scalper. It's basically the same amount of money, just going to a different person. But at the end of the day, you're the one still paying for it. Look, I can't change anything. I don't have the power to do it, no matter how much people say that, oh, I control this community. I am the face of the Western. I am not the face of anything. I'm just a stupid YouTuber that likes to do videos of how she paints, her figures and puts out tutorials. That's all I do. I have no power. But the way I see it, the way I see things, is that greed is destroying this hobby from all fronts and all levels. All because the copyright law in Japan is outdated. People abuse that fact and make really, really big profits off of it. From the dummy dealers to the dummy dashers to the personal proxies, ending up with the recasters. There's greed on every single one of those levels, and you can't tell me otherwise. The only victims here are the people that want to paint those figures but are left between a rock and a hard place. The root of the problem is not China. The root of the problem is Japanese law, not to mention the indifference of all the Japanese artists towards Westerners. The law needs to change to keep up with the times. We live in a globalized world. Japan is not a closed down country like it was in the Edo period. For the same way that the laws and regulations changed so that anime streaming sites could go legit, the same thing needs to happen in order for us to acquire garage kits outside Japan in an easier way so that it can deter, it can stop, or it could stop incentivizing people from buying recasts, have real consequences for scalpers at events like Wonderfest. Even just making it easy for us to buy directly from Japan without the need of a proxy would help greatly if we have a one-on-one contact with the artist. Even if it's through Google Translate, trust me, it doesn't matter to us as long as the Japanese artists are open to communicating with us, even with the broken English of that they have or that they, end up using because of the Translate app. It doesn't matter. It's a direct communication. They need to start to change their attitudes toward us. We have begged them for literal years to look at us, to acknowledge us, and say, oh, look, there's someone outside Japan that, wants to buy our kits. Maybe we should look into this. Maybe we should see what we can do and stop ignoring us. The sculptors need to work with their governments so that their regulations can be modified and updated. That's the only way I see them helping to really make a difference. We can't do that. And what they ask of us is not entirely feasible for everybody. But Japan is a conformist society. They like to keep the status quo. They will not do anything to help us. They just want you to follow their laws, and they don't care how you do it. They see us as their enemy, but in my opinion, they're placing the blame on the wrong person. Once they have that perception of you, it's hard to change it. Again, they see everything in black and white. There's no gray in between. So I don't think this will have a solution. Because it's inconvenient for them, because it means that they would need to put their effort into something instead of just hoping that people stop buying pirated garage kits. They need to put their little grain of sand to start to make a change. Change starts from within and from the very top going to the bottom. If you ask me, that simply won't happen. I think Japanese sculptors and Western GK builders will probably never see eye to eye because of that. When I went to Wonderfest for the first time, I went with the intent of trying to build the bridge between the East and the West, between the two communities. Maybe if they realized that there were people outside Japan that were fans of their work, they would start to realize, oh, well, maybe we should start to sell directly. But every single time that I approached a table to try and even talk to them. And even though you would say, oh, maybe they don't speak English. I know they don't speak English. I took my interpreter, my very certified Japanese interpreter with me so that I can speak to them directly. And all I got was, no, thank you. It was extremely demoralizing to think, to realize that there I was meeting my heroes only to be turned away. That's when I realized that Japanese artists don't care about us. All my interest in trying to get Japanese artists to see us and to see me died that day. The GK industry has created an environment where kits have become commodities, and it's sucking the joy out of trying to even think about getting one, because you have to pay an arm and a leg to do the right thing. All this turns into an economic bragging rights kind of thing. And it doesn't sit well with me, because a hobby is a hobby at the end of the day. It's entertainment. It's something that should bring you joy. Copyright shouldn't be the thing that you're thinking about when you see a figure that you really like and you want to paint, but it happens to be a recast. And it happens to be the only thing that you can acquire at that moment. What's my stance on recasts after all this? It's the same as it always been for years. If I can support the artist directly, and I mean directly, like as in my money goes directly from my wallet into their hands with nothing in the middle, and they let me do that, I will always urge the people to do the right thing. Do the legit thing. Buy an original. Support the artist directly. Don't buy from scalpers. Don't buy from resellers. Don't hire proxies. Don't risk your money when there could be other ways you can support them. But the problem is they don't let us. When they give me that opportunity, I always take it. I'm all for avoiding recasts when there's a real possibility to support the artist directly. But when they make things impossible, you do you. I'm nobody's morality police to tell them what to do with their money. I had the pleasure of going to Wonderfest this year, and it was so nice to walk up to each and every artist that I liked their works and give them my cold hard cash right into their hands. It was an amazing sensation to know that my money went to them and not anybody else. I try my hardest, like I said, to support when and where I can. And this year, I supported them directly by going to their country, spending my money, in their economy, and going to the event, just so that I can say I have some original kits from Wonderfest this year. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't end up being a bragging competition, which is in most cases what it turns to be. I haven't really purchased a recast in several years. It doesn't really appeal to me at this point anymore. Maybe it's because I have so many kits in my collection that, why add more, to the stockpile that I wonder if I'll be able to paint in my lifetime. That's just me. But where I do buy kits, I try and always make it legit. But I don't go over and brag about it. Why? But for the haters that hear me say that, they don't care. They will still throw shit at me. They will still think the worst of me. They will still say that I'm the worst person in the world and I'm not a good person, and add every other adjective and synonym that you can think of. But if another person does it in the community and says, oh no, I've learned from my ways, I've gone legit only, they get patted on the back. But me, I still get spit on. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I'm this evil YouTuber that promotes recasts. Ooh. The world is not Japan. Japan needs to put effort on their part and shift attitudes if they really want to make a change, like I said. If they truly want people to stop purchasing recasts, the first thing they need to start doing is to stop attacking us. They need to start into reforming laws and regulations. Work from the very top down to the bottom. We're not here to be evil. We're not here thinking, ha! Fuck the sculptors! They don't deserve my money! Ha! We're far from it and completely the opposite, but they don't see it that way. For the same way that legal streaming sites help diminish piracy, anime piracy in general around the world. Will recasts ever disappear? I don't know. As long as it continues to remain extremely hard to acquire original kits, probably. I don't really have high hopes for it. Those are my thoughts. You can agree or disagree, and if you disagree, please keep it civil down there. I wanted to come in and share my thoughts on something where it's just me and the camera, a la commentary style. I don't know if these videos are interesting or maybe educational, maybe. Let me know in the comments. I would very much like to make more videos like these in between the big productions so that you guys can have something to watch. There are other things that I would love to talk about, not only this. This I decided to speak about because I wanted to ever since I came back from Wonderfest in February, but also because of a certain situation that happened. And I'm like, you know what? It's time to sit my butt down and write a script because it needs to be said. And even though I know certain people were watching just for the hate watch, and I know certain people are watching just to continue to, I don't know, maybe confirm their biases against me. At least, I said my piece on this. And I very much would like to talk about other things regarding the hobby, not just this, mainly negative things and more positive things. Let me know in the comments. And I don't know if you can see. I don't know because it's too dark. I can see, but you can't. I'm working on 3 figures. One is an adventure on its own that hasn't finished, believe it or not. Remember what I told you about my love-hate relationship with 3D printers? It has to do with that. But in the meantime, I know it's been a while since I posted, and I just wanted to come in, let you guys know that, I'm still kicking and I'm still working. Just, give me a few weeks to finish what I'm doing, and you'll get another cool Watch Me Paint video. But for now, I love you very much. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, even if you didn't watch, for listening. I know this half of this subject in this video is very divisive. I do hope people will remain civil And if not, well, let's see what my moderators have to tell me over the weekend or over the week when they tell me that they had to delete a lot of hate comments. Anyways, until next time, Arras Monkeys, keep it classy, please. And I'll see you in the next one. All right? Bye.